In this week's channel message from the angels, they are talking about how our thoughts will shift after we go through the shift in consciousness, about how our thoughts today are our knowledge that we gather is really gathered from the perception of living behind the veil, where we are in isolation from the knowledge of the universe. And how will we change when we are on the other side of this big change and all knowledge is available to us? So it's a fascinating thing to think about, really. So welcome back to my channel, you guys. I am so glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming and joining me, sharing these messages together. I feel like I learned so much more in talking about them with you. And for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I'm a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm, and I do that by raising my awareness. I go as high as I can. I stretch a little higher. I connect. Then messages, information, and healing come through, and I share it here with you guys on YouTube. So, and the angels have been giving us some amazing messages about the shift in consciousness. They've taken us through the process, what we can expect to happen. They've given us perspectives on what we will feel and be like on the other side. So it's just been some incredibly valuable and fun. The messages, I mean, like they've given us hard messages in the past about like what we have to get through in the process to get there. But this is the fun stuff, right? This is what we get after we shift. And so, yeah, so I'm super psyched to be not so psyched about the harder messages I had to share before this one. This one I'm happy to share because it's all good news. So, so really amazing. And about, anyway, I'll share it with you guys. And the way my format is, for those of you who are new, I will play the original meditation for you. And then, or when I was meditating, I'll play with you the message that came through when I was in channel. And then afterwards, we will break it down and talk through the meaning of everything, because there's frequently layers in there. The angels are very multi-dimensional beings, so they tend to pack a lot of meaning into just a few words. So, okay, all right. So that said, let's dive into today's message. And I want to let you know, for those of you who are interested if you are interested in offering your services in a spiritual practice, this is the last weekend to sign up for Business Energetics. So Business Energetics is my course where I will show with you what I have learned about how to create a successful spiritual business. And it turns it into a spiritual process, but it is very practical. I give you templates, practically done for you templates to help guide you through the process. It is going to be where you have the course and you have office hours, that where you can come in and get specific help taught in relatively small groups, so you can get feedback on your specific information. It's a fantastic course. And I do have a live on my channel, which I will link to down below, where you can hear all about it. All right, you guys. So if you want to do that, don't miss out. This weekend is the last chance to join. And all right, let's go ahead and dive into the message.
Beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Blessings, we are here. We begin to speak now on the subject of your own thoughts, of your new dimensions of the mind that are coming. The sensation of being human is limited in its sphere and knowing. There is the sense of who you are, what and how you have been. There is in your heart a nearness, a proximity to what you are. There is a haven there for self-understanding, but there is not the directionally unlimited perspective to which you are entitled. There is not the open hand, the open invitation to all knowing, which is your domain of understanding. There has been placed upon your heart and self a limitation which draws to a close. Its end is near. And this limiting veil prescribes for the self your own undoing. It is a limitation within which you are prescribed a life in its unfurling, a limitation that bedevils the self within your own orchestrations, that limits how you can portray a reality through you. It is a perspective that is gained from within what is unveiled as you are instrumentally interfering with your own experience. This we would reveal that as you portray yourself into the now, it is through the barrier or veil that stems from an internal orchestration that comes from the self. There is no externality to your bedeviled vision. There is no external force upon the self that prevents you from knowledge. It is an internal orchestration which has been unknown, which has been a limitation to encounter yourself more deeply. In the times that are coming, the knowingness that you are stems from within and is met without limitation. It is allowed its own perspective to be shared within and without. It is an opening, an openness that comes and is gathered within and expressed in its wholeness. And within this space, your own entrance is guaranteed. You are made to feel appropriate and at length to be in the becoming of a new world. You are made to feel that all that you are is welcomed. There is no part of yourself that is spoiled or left behind. There is no limitation which guards you against what you are. The knowledge of what is a thought stream, a limitless investigation into all that is. It is as though your own thoughts, which you have been encountering, no longer occupy the mind. And where you find yourself attuning is to a visionary thought stream, which comes to the self at your own bidding, which comes, as you shall call it, instantaneous knowing, instantaneous perception. It shall be as if all that you are is perceiving. And upon perception, all that is available to know is revealed to the self. It shall be as if what you are cannot be unfolded in your own knowing. It is as if what you are is revealed in the moment, in all that you are having been and can be. It comes upon the precipice of the now. There's not the satisfaction you have been having of the gradual perception that comes through effort. This has been the orchestration of a life lived behind the veil of your own perception. It has been a life led by mystery, unsolved. In the new reality which shall unfold itself, you shall bridge this world and that with an understanding of all that is. And thus, what shall come through you is not knowledge as it has been, but the practice of being, beingness. It shall be the mystery to be solved. Who can you be now? Who shall you create within? And how shall that self reveal itself into a world that is shared by all? And what shall occupy your time that is fixed within this knowingness to be revealed to others? This is a great shift apart from how you have been and what has been valued. All of your learning has not been for itself. There's no knowledge you can take part in that is valuable in and of itself, except as it is gathered within the whole. And the whole has the knowledge which shall empower your new self. You shall have access to truths and knowings and these shall be many faceted and take into account the many leanings of humanity. And you shall bridge these opportunities for understanding one another. You shall gather within yourself, in your heart, the willingness to be opened to perspectives you do not share. And within these wholenesses, you shall gather up unto the self what you are and how you differ, and how your perspective may be gently guarded while also participatory, how you may shield what you are and yet penetrate the perception of the all in a willingness to unfold all that is around you. There is for the self a disturbing vision of loss of self, of who am I in the announcement of all that is, if all that I care about is lost to me, if all that I have studied and shattered myself upon in the great orchestration of the lives that you have built. Who are you if all that mattered no longer matters? And we say the great depth of knowledge which you have catered your life to, which you have gathered like precious crumbs across a table of sparse meanings. We say these thoughts are not the value in and of themselves, but it was the journey of acquiring them that is of value. It was the experience of your own limitation. It was the experience of your own journey and the undertaking to know what is. And this you shall perceive more readily. You shall see what you are. You shall see your strength and your own cunning, your own ability to unravel the great mysteries of a world that would reveal itself only unwillingly. In the new world, as it shall come to be termed, you shall find who you are has gathered these morsels which are shared by the many, and within them you shall bring your soul. You shall bring your entirety, all you've ever known, done, all you've ever been. And all of this shall rest upon the precipice of knowledge, which shall be carried in the hearts, available at the ready. The great mysteries shall seem solved. There shall not be the same drive to uncover what is. There shall be instead the desire to interpret what is through the process of becoming, through beingness. It is a shift in how you live. It is as though the mystery resides not outside of the self, but within, that you carry the great mysteries of the universe. And to express your soul is to unveil true knowledge. Truth comes from within. All right, so let's go ahead and break down the message. So they do usually, like right in the first paragraph, they dive right in and tell us like what the message is going to be about. And they say here, they say, blessings, we are here. We begin to speak now on the subject of your own thoughts, of your new dimensions of the mind that are coming. So this is I love here that they mention the dimensions of your mind, right? The dimensions of your mind that are coming. So right now we are limited to this, if you want to call it a dimension, the space, this time that we are in, we're limited to our own personal experience. And so on the subject of our thoughts, they're saying that in the new reality, there are new dimensions that are coming. So in other words, our awareness, our knowledge expands beyond this dimension. So that right there, right off the beginning is very interesting. They go on to say the sensation of being human is limited in its sphere and knowing. In other words, it's like we are living. Imagine that this reality is like it's a play that we're involved in, right? We're involved in, and we've got a certain number of actors and we've got a certain number of scenes, and our current awareness has to live within the plot. We can't go outside the plot. Like this is our reality. So we're limited in the sphere and in what we know. And so in other words, the only things we know are the things that we learn within this sphere. So we got to read books, we get to take classes, like that's how we learn. We have to acquire the learning. It has to come from our direct experience of being taught, right? So this is where we are. We're limited in this sphere. Then they go on to say there is the sense of who you are, what and how you have been. So this is personal experience is how we learn, is what they're saying there. There is in your heart a nearness of proximity to what you are. There is a haven there for self-understanding, but there is not the directionally unlimited perspective to which you are entitled. So fascinating. So they say, so in other words, we're right up against the truth of who we are. Like we're literally in there. Like it's right available to us, this higher perspective. But and they say that within that, there's a haven for self-understanding in the heart. There, in other words, we have this process of being able to confront ourselves and learn about ourselves. And every time we learn about ourselves, we get a little bit closer, right, to our truth. But they say, but there is not, even no matter what we do while we're here in this world, the realm that we're currently living in, the reality we're currently in, there is never the directionally unlimited perspective, would they say, to which we are entitled. That has not existed on the earth plane. And that would be directionally unlimited. So it is like right now, our perspective, it comes from our lens only. If our perspective is directionally unlimited, we can come at it from every possible angle. We can understand. So in other words, if I was to look at a particular issue, let's say one of the hotbed issues of our time, like in the US, we've got a crazy election coming up and lots of perspectives on that election, and each person has their own unique perspective. But in the new reality, we will have a directionally unlimited perspective. In other words, we will understand the issue from everybody else's point of view, right? And not only that, we will understand it outside of this realm, and outside we will have a spiritual perspective. So we will have unlimited unlimited perspective. So this is and they say this is a perspective that we are entitled to. They say there is not the open hand, the open invitation to all knowing, which is your domain of understanding. So in other words, humanity is meant to be all knowing. And that, if you just think about that, the idea that if anybody who was all knowing, if you had a human who was born all knowing, how different their life would be. Like, what is school in an environment where you are all knowing? I remember I did a foreign exchange program when I was in college, and I was going to school in another country. And in that country, they defined a lot of what they were teaching was like statistics. And it would be, they were telling us like what we would have to do in class. And I was really excited to sign up for this one class because it was about their culture. And I was really excited to like learn about the culture. And every class was, the teacher would just put up statistics on the board, how many, barrels of oil they produced, how much wheat they used, how much, and that was all it was. That literally every day was just statistics. It was mind boggling to me. So what would school be if you inherently, all you had to do was think and you knew all those statistics? If you didn't have to learn them, if they were readily available to you with a blink of an eye, and you didn't have to go, I mean, like we kind of have that now with Google where you just search it, but what if it was just inside your own head? Like, how would that change school and what it is to be a kid if you're born with that? So it's a fascinating question, right? All knowing, which is our domain of understanding. That is what humanity is meant to be. So they go on to say, there has been placed upon your heart and self a limitation which draws to a close. Its end is near. So the limitation is going to be, and that is with the shift in consciousness. This is coming to a close, this current way of being. And they say, and this limiting veil prescribes for the self your own undoing. It is a limitation within which you are prescribed a life in its unfurling, a limitation that bedevils the self with your own orchestrations. So in other words, the way that we are right now, when we have this veil, which we know, we've heard talk about that veil, the veil that separates us from the truth of who we are, from our memory of who we were before birth. It's like we are born and this veil drops down. And they say that the limiting veil prescribes for the self your own undoing. So in other words, when we are separated from our higher spiritual perspective, we get lost in our own wounding and we aren't able to see things from a higher mind. So it becomes our undoing. So how is it that we create a world of chaos, separate us from our spiritual perspective, separate us from the truth that everyone shares, and keep us limited in our own wounds, in our own history? and prevent us from really understanding each other. So we have all kinds of opportunities to get our feelings hurt, to misunderstand what people said, right? And that creates more wounds, which we can then create a crazier reality with. Like that is our undoing. Separation is the undoing. Separation from our higher perspective, separation from one another, where we can't understand each other's perspectives. So they say this limiting veil prescribes for the self your own undoing. So it separates us, and we end up seeing things through misunderstanding, and that creates hurt, and that hurt then manifests in our world as more hurt, right? It is a limitation within which you are prescribed a life and its unfurling, a limitation that bedevils the self within your own orchestration. So we do it to ourselves, our own orchestrations, that limits how you can portray a reality through you. So in other words, we are always creative beings. We are always creating our reality. So it is just, what perspective are we in when we're creating it? And if we're in a perspective of separation, when the only perspective we can see is our own, and we don't really understand, we can't fully appreciate what other people are doing or saying, we are likely to get our feelings hurt, create or be physically hurt in one way or another, right? It creates more and more and more chaos in the world. Separation does. And we then create more of that in our reality. They go on to say, and they talk here, they're talking about the veil. They say, it is a perspective that is gained from within what is unveiled as you are instrumentally interfering with your own experience. And then they say, this we would reveal, that as you portray yourself into the now, it is through the barrier or veil that stems from an internal orchestration that comes from the self. There is no externality to your bedeviled vision. So the veil of forgetting is something that is not an external thing. It's not like when we're born, we move through like a layer of fog and it somehow wipes away our memory. It is an internal thing that we experience ourselves, the veil of forgetting. It's something inside of us that we create for ourselves, and it separates us from our knowing. So that is interesting in and of itself. And they say that it is that within it, say what is unveiled we selectively choose what's going to be revealed to us. So we come through and we decide, okay, I'm going to remember this thing. I'm not going to remember this thing, right? I'm going to separate myself from these aspects of myself, but I'm going to allow these aspects to come through. It's like we have this carefully crafted experience when we are born, and we leave behind everything that would connect us to our higher truth and to each other. So it is through the barrier or veil that stems from an internal orchestration that comes from the self. There is no externality to your bedeviled vision. There is no external force upon the self that prevents you from knowledge. It is an internal orchestration which has been unknown, which has been a limitation to encounter yourself more deeply. So that is the reason for it, is in order, we basically put ourselves in this position where we are in separation in order to experience how we're going to react, what we're going to do, how are we going to grow through it, right? That is the thing. We put ourselves into a conflict or problem, and then we try our best to grow through that experience and to gain knowledge about ourselves through that experience, and to forgive all the different layers of ourself and integrate all the different layers of ourself. So it's a pathway to self-love. So they go on to say, in the times that are coming, the knowingness that you are stems from within and is met without limitation. So this is a major difference, right? No limitation. It is, and this is in the new time, after we go through the shift in consciousness, they say it is allowed its own perspective to be shared within and without. It is an opening and openness that comes and is gathered within and expressed into wholeness. So in the new reality, we are not limited in our perspective, right? A knowingness that you are stems from within and is met without limitation. So this is the connection to our higher truth, that we have this openness to our higher spiritual perspective, as well as one another, right? And then it's shared from within and without. They go on to say, and within this space, so here you are, you're connected to in the new reality, connected to your higher truth. Within this space, your own entrance is guaranteed. You are made to feel appropriate. Interesting choice. Like, think about that. Like, So many of our wounds come from the feeling that we are not enough. But what if you always felt appropriate? What if you always felt like I am just right? Appropriate means that you're like I am all right. I am just okay. And so it's like you're exactly fitting in. It addresses really, I think, one of the biggest problems we have as humanity is the feeling of loneliness. And the feeling like even like a lot of times you guys may have felt that it is your old soulness that makes you feel different from other people and separated from other people. It's the fact that you do have greater depth, and even though that's a beautiful thing, sometimes it makes you feel lonely. Well, what if you always felt appropriate? You always felt like you were, whatever you are is exactly perfect, and so you fit in, like you right at home is what they're saying. You feel right at home here on earth, so you're connected to your higher self and you're feeling right at home, totally fit in. And they say, and at length, to be in the becoming of a new world. You are made to feel that all that you are is welcomed. So, this is how we're creating the new world, from this perspective of attuned to our higher self and feeling totally welcomed by one another. And we create that rather than the feeling of feeling separation, which is then creating separation in the world. We have the feeling of being connected and welcomed. And that is the new reality. There is no part of yourself that is spoiled or left behind. There is no limitation which guards you against what you are. So we begin to create from this much more whole perspective of ourselves. And they go on to say the knowledge of what is a thought stream, a limitless investigation into all that is. It is as though your own thoughts, which you have been encountering, no no longer occupy the mind. So in this new way of being, when we're there, the way that our like what is how do we tap into this higher knowledge, this idea that you can get answers in a moment, right? That you can just tap in and be like, what is pi? It'll be like, boom, here it is. It comes right into your head. But they say it's a thought stream, that it's like this endless river, and you just need to kind of put your cup in and take out a glass, and you've got whatever you need. And they say in this reality of this new way of being, where the thought stream is always there, and all you have to do is tune into it, and the stream contains everything, that it's a limitless investigation into all that is. So, and I think this is basically our collective consciousness. This is everything. But I think beyond us, it's like universal consciousness, which knows everything. So, and it is a limitless investigation. And we, each of us, are constantly adding to it, which is why it's a limitless investigation. It's not a limitless library of things. Like it's not all the books are not already done. It's still an investigation, because we are all living and adding to that knowledge that is universal. So we all tap into this universal river of knowledge to get whatever we need to know. And they say it is as though your own thoughts, which you've been encountering, no longer occupy the mind. So our old way of thinking, which has been very, very separated and very limited to our own experience only, now opens up to the experience of all reality. Yeah. And then they say, and where you find yourself attuning is to a visionary thought stream, which comes to the self at your own bidding, which comes, as you shall call it, instantaneous knowing, instantaneous perception. It shall be as if all that you are is perceiving, and upon perception, all that is available to know is revealed to the self. So, and I like that they broke it down into two steps, perceiving and knowing, because the perception is part of our divinity. Is that where do you put your perception is your awareness. Where do you put your perception? So it's really a reference point to the fact that we are living in the now, in this new reality, that our perception is moving into the now, and in the now moment, we have access to all knowledge. So we're able to process our reality from that perspective of universal knowledge, and to see it and learn in the moment about ourselves through this experience between our interaction with our reality and our universal consciousness, and how it affects us, how we feel riding that wave of awareness. So it's an amazing thought. It really is. It's kind of a mind bender. This one is definitely a mind bender. So it shall be as if all that you are is perceiving, and upon perception, all that is available to know is revealed to the self. It shall be as if what you are cannot be unfolded in your own knowing. So in other words, over time, what you are is not a thing where you walk away and unpack it. Like, how did I feel about that? What would I have said? I wish I had said something differently. Or what do you think that person meant by that? That's unfolding. Instead, it's all processed in the moment. So they say it will be as if you are what you are is revealed in the moment, and all that you are having been, all that let's see, and all that you are having been and can be, it comes up upon the precipice of the now. So this is it's they've been talking about this for a while, that it'll be like riding a wave. Like it's moving from the karmic experience to the dharmic experience. And it'll be like riding a wave of consciousness where reality is coming up to meet you, and you are interacting with that reality, and you have a hyper attuned perception, which is hyper aware in the now. You're not wasting a bunch of energy projecting what's going to happen next, or thinking about what just happened. You're super focused on the now, and you have access to universal knowledge. So you're bringing that into every moment, and you're able to understand the truth of everything from every perspective. And then within that, you see how you fit, and how does it make you feel, and what is your experience of it from that universal truth. And then your experience then goes back in to feed universal knowledge, which is limitless and expanding, right? So it's amazing. And it's really hard to imagine what this is going to be like. We can talk about it, and understand it conceptually, but to live it is going to be mind bending. Absolutely. Really. I mean, like, good word, mind bending, because this is what we're going to be doing. We are mind bending. Yeah. So, all right. So then the next paragraph, they say that this is talking about how the way we have been living has been to be sort of enjoying the mystery, has been the current reality. So they say there's not the satisfaction you've been having of the gradual perception that comes through effort. This has been the orchestration of a life lived behind the veil of your own perspective. It has been a life led by mystery unsolved. In the new reality which shall unfold itself, you shall bridge this world and that with an understanding of all that is. So yeah, no more mysteries, you guys. And I know, like, often we say that would kind of spoil it. Like it's like getting a book and like reading the last chapter first. And does that wreck the book? And I would say yes, if we were still living in today, if the reality hadn't changed. And so right now, like, the fun of it is the mystery. And that's like, why would we bother to incarnate? Because of the mystery. You got to have it. You got to have the veil to make it fun, to be living in this process of trying to figure it out. And in the new reality, it's a completely different framework. We're learning something different. We're no longer trying to understand ourselves through contrast and trying to figure it out. In the new reality, here's what they say: and thus, what shall come through you is not knowledge as it has been, but the practice of beingness. It shall be the mystery to be solved. So our new focus is not on trying to understand what's outside of us. It's on trying to understand our own beingness through the interaction with a reality that is coming from inside of us in every moment, from this hyper awareness with access to all knowledge, right? And then in that space, it's almost like who we are becomes crystal clear. So our self-knowledge can expand in huge ways, right? It's like I said, hard to understand, but an amazing concept. They go on to say, who can you be now? Who shall you create within, and how shall that reveal itself into a world that is shared by all? And what shall occupy your time that is fixed within this knowingness to be revealed to others? So this refers to this idea, this last paragraph: what shall occupy your time to be revealed to others? So in a world without constraint, in a world where you have access to all knowledge, where you can create whatever you want to create, and you're living in the moment, you're kind of surfing the wave of reality, and it's coming up to meet you, and you've got this amazing creative power. What thrills you? Where's your joy? And it comes from creating and tuning. And they talked about this last week. It's from creating something in alignment with what everyone wants and what the earth herself wants. It comes from this perspective of living in alignment with everyone, and then finding out that thing inside of you that can come out that will be of service to everyone, right? And so this is what we're going to be doing, and this is part of an expression of our beingness. How do I be me? Is by expressing that you, and your expression may be totally unique to you. Some of you may have a real artistic bent. Some of you may be super verbal. Some of you may be good with your hands. Maybe you build, maybe you cook, maybe, whatever it is, I don't know, whatever your way of beingness is, that it is going to be tuning into what everyone wants to experience that can be met from inside of you, and then creating that into the world and experiencing the process of creating it for everyone, right? It sounds amazing. So, um, uh, yeah, and then they go on to say that that the place that we've been in, the reality we've been in, has been in a place where what we value is knowledge. You know, knowledge is how you get rewarded in our world, right? Going to extra school and extra school and extra school is, you know, you get rewarded with better and better jobs. Not anymore. Like, that's not going to be the case anymore. And they say this is a great shift apart from how you have been and what has been valued. All of your learning has not been for itself. There is no knowledge you can take part in that is valuable in and of itself, except as it is gathered within the whole, and the whole has the knowledge which shall empower your new self. So, in other words, becoming an expert at something by studying that it's there. In other words, it's different if you're discovering a whole new area of knowledge. If you have, through your discovery, through your expression of self, you find information or knowledge or a way of seeing the world that is totally unique and has never been done before, that is gathered into the whole and expands the whole. But if you are studying something that has already been understood and you're just mastering it, then that is not creating new knowledge. So they're saying that is something that is valued today, but in the new reality becomes less valued because of the fact that you can turn into universal consciousness. So you don't have to spend the time to read all the books and do all the things to master it. All you got to do is tap into the river, the stream of universal knowledge, right? And they're saying that so that the learning that you've done, the value of that has not been for the knowledge that you've gathered. In the next paragraph, they say what it's actually been. They say that you shall have access to truths and knowings, and these shall be many faceted and take into account the many leanings of humanity. And you shall bridge these opportunities for understanding one another. You shall gather within yourself and your heart the willingness to be opened to perspectives you do not share. In other words, part of this, so we lean away from the feeling of that we have to learn in the traditional way. We are open to a higher state. We tap into the universal knowledge, and we are opened to all of a sudden perceiving things from everybody else's point of view, even those point of views that are completely opposite to our own. So say for you are on one side of the political spectrum, all of a sudden you are going to understand and feel deeply the same depth that you feel your own feelings, you're going to feel the other side. You're going to feel their perspective. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily even change your feelings, right? You may still say, no, this is me, but I understand why they feel the way they do, right? And you feel the depth of it. Like, you feel the really reasons underneath why they feel the way they do. And so you make space for it. And there becomes a world where we make space for each other. And you can still have your perspective. You can still say, this is my truth. And this still makes sense to me. This still feels in alignment with me, but there's space for every perspective. And and that's different. You become capable. We each become capable of holding all these different perspectives at once, kind of like the angels. They hold a gazillion billion perspectives all the time, which is why they frequently speak in with so many like words that mean 50 things, you know? But we will be like that, just about how other people feel. Like, we will tune in. That will be a source of our knowledge, will be the ability to hold the universal knowledge and the communal consciousness of how does everybody feel? What are all the different facets to this diamond? Yeah, amazing. So then they go on to say, and within these wholenesses, you shall gather up into the self what you are and how you differ, and how your perspective may be gently guarded while also participatory. In other words, so you keep your own perspective and your own perspective is honored, but you participate in every other perspective as well. And you're able to manage all that without any problem. Yeah, amazing, amazing. So think about what that does to political fighting and infighting and polarity if you're able to understand your own perspective and have absolute reverence for other people's perspectives, right? To treat them with like as if they're just as valid, or they feel, because you feel the underneath, even if you don't agree with their logic, you feel the feelings behind it. Everybody has a truth to their feelings. There is a reason why everybody feels the way they do. Nobody's is like the idea of being like that the other side is delusional or something like that. Like, nope, they've got a truth in there. It's just that we don't see it from their perspective. And this changes that. It makes it so that their truth becomes knowable, understandable, relatable. Like on some level, it's always relatable. That draws us together. Yeah, amazing. All right, they go on to say, uh, so we're able to hold our own gently guarded while also participatory. How you may shield what you are and yet penetrate the perception of the all in a willingness to unfold all that is around you. So it's really this amazing sense of this is the belonging. This is the unity, right? Where we are ourselves and then we are also really feeling other people at the same time. They go on to say, there is for the self a disturbing vision of loss of self. Who am I in the announcement of all that is, if all that I care about is lost to me? So, and this I really feel for like, what if you're hearing this and you are the person that has like 4 PhDs, like you're the person who's like dedicated their life to mastering knowledge. And then here I am saying, oh, knowledge doesn't matter. You're like, I'm going to turn this off, because, yeah, because that is disturbing. And they're saying, so what of that? What is that? What about that? Like, what if knowing a lot of stuff is, what if you are the person who like is a whiz at trivia? Like, does this take that away from you? And how does that feel? That the disturbing vision of loss of self. What if this is a major part of your identity? And they say, if all that I have studied and shattered myself upon, right? So, and I love that phrasing. Wow. So, all that I have studied and shattered myself upon. In other words, they're saying they recognize that it has been incredibly hard work to learn what you've learned. That studying, you've shattered yourself. I'm just visioning like late nights cramming for exams and all the stuff that you got to do when you pursue a depth of knowledge, that you shatter yourself upon whatever that hard work is. And they say, in the great orchestration of the lives that you've built, who are you if all that mattered no longer matters? Right? Big question. And I feel the power of that one, right? Who are you if all that mattered to you before no longer matters in the new reality? What is our identity in that case? And they say, and we say, the great depth of knowledge which you have catered your life to, which you have gathered like precious crumbs across a table of sparse meanings. We say these thoughts are not the value in and of themselves, but it was the journey of acquiring them that is of value. It was the experience of your own limitation. It was the experience of your own journey in the undertaking to know what is. And so that it's so, I mean, that's such a beautiful thought, because it's true that all that really matters in life up until now is how much have we engaged in life. And it doesn't matter if that engagement is through the process of pursuing relationships or pursuing knowledge or pursuing, travel or pursuing, like, how is it that you have thrown yourself into the world? And if it's been through the expansion of your knowledge, like that, you certainly have come across limitations in the expansion of your knowledge. You've come across ideas that excite you, or ideas that frustrate you, or problems you couldn't understand or couldn't solve, or you had to work through until you solved, right? And that is an adventure. It's a mental adventure, but it's an absolute adventure, and the adventure changed you. And so just like traveling is an adventure that can change you. And that's what they're saying. That is the value, and that is never lost. That's the piece we carry with us. It doesn't matter what were the pieces you were moving on the chessboard. What matters is you played chess. That's what matters, that you had an experience of living. And that if you were learning a lot, it means you were really engaged. It means you were doing something hard. You were trying. And that's what it takes to have a full life. So, yeah, it was the experience of your own journey in the undertaking to know what is. They go on to say, next paragraph, they say, and this you shall perceive more readily. So we begin to see this in ourselves. Like we start to recognize our journey more and to see how we grew through it. So this is easier. It's an easier pill to swallow after we get there. They say, you shall see what you are. You shall see your strength and your own cunning, your own ability to unravel the great mysteries of a world that would reveal itself only unwillingly, right? And that is like truth in that. Like it hasn't been, learning in this reality has not been easy. It's gotten increasingly easier in some ways. Like I remember as a kid, Like it was like if you needed to write a report, it was like, where's your encyclopedia? And you had to look it up in the book and you had like this much information. And there just wasn't, it was hard to get information when I was a kid. And now it's much easier to get information. But in some ways, that's just a different problem. It's the glut of information. Now it's the editorial. How do you know the information you have is good information? How do you know that, like, yeah, that it's how do you sort and sift to in order to find good sources of information? So I guess it's still, no matter what in this reality, it is unwilling to be discovered. But the key is that in the new reality, we will see ourselves, we will see where we were strong, we will see where we were clever, we will see, right, how did we unravel the mysteries? What did we do? What actions did we take? How did we explore our own limits and push past our own limits and learn that we could hold more, right? Back to our conversation about abundance. How do you hold more? How do you expand the template for all of reality, all of humanity? So that and yeah, and that is a big thing about this, what I was talking about the idea of abundance is there a limit, right? Is there a thing where we get to a place where we can't expand any further? And I would say our bodies, in seems like in every way, that we are like the universe, that everything that's true in the small is true in the large. So what's true in our body is true in the universe. The universe is expanding infinitely. The universe is expanding. And you look at it, it's in this process of continual expansion. And so will it collapse on itself? Maybe, right? But right now, that expansion seems to be like huge. It just seems to be going and going and going. So yeah, I would say at some point probably there will be a contraction, because that is the nature of us, of our bodies, that if you have an inhale and you expand, eventually you have to contract and inhale. So probably, but there's a whole lot of expansion that you could still do. There's a whole lot more growth, a whole bigger breath that you can take. So, all right. So then they go on to say, yeah, the journey is what was valuable, and that it'll be easier to see ourselves. They go on to say, in the new world, as it shall come to be termed, you shall find who you are has gathered these morsels, which are shared by the many, and within them you shall bring your soul. You shall bring your entirety. And all you've ever known, done, all you've ever been, and all of this shall rest upon the precipice of knowledge, which shall be carried in the hearts available at the ready. So what becomes meaningful is when you have your knowledge and you bring your soul and your entirety into that knowledge, when it's about the you that's inside of it. What was your experience of it? What was your truth in it? How did it change you? Right? That's what's interesting. And then that information becomes the knowledge that's shared with everyone. And that's the piece that's right. That is how we grow as humanity. They go on to say, the great mysteries shall seem solved. There shall not be the same drive to uncover what is. There shall be instead the desire to interpret what is through the process of becoming, through beingness. So it is being in a reality where you have access to all knowledge, and then your interaction with that reality, and then seeing what becomes out of your interactions. So it's more like chemistry. What happens when you add you into this mix? And then how does that evolve? And how does that change what is? So and that's a very organic process. And that's that very dharmic experience where you're very out of your head and you're very, very much in your heart, and you're feeling your way through your experience. So, yeah, and then they say it is a shift in how we live. It is as though the mystery resides not outside of the self, but within, that you carry the great mysteries of the universe, and to express your soul is to unveil true knowledge. Truth comes from within. Right? I've always heard that truth comes from within, but this adds a whole nother layer to it, right? This really makes it make sense. Like now I get that truth comes from within. It's super awesome, super awesome. So yeah, amazing message, you guys, and very, really, really different. I mean, they've been trying to get us to understand more and more what this shift is going to be about, how it's going to affect us. And this is an area they really haven't talked about, which is like this idea of our thoughts and our knowledge, and how will that change, and what will that experience be like? And to me, it sounds amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, like imagine in the beginning how crazy it will feel to think about something and then poof, it's just, you just know it. And it's going to be a little bit like a world where there's limitless energy. If everybody has or imagine if everybody there was all the money in the world, that there was never a limit on anything. And I know you would say, oh, well, that would just be like more inflation. But I mean, in a world that there's limitless resources, that the whole way we live our lives would change. We would no longer be chasing anything. We would just be. And we would just be in a world where we would be like, look, if I can have anything, if I can create anything, if I can experience anything, who am I in this reality? In the current environment that I'm in, how is it relating to me? And what do I want to create? And then we tune into what we want to create by tuning into the all, tuning into everyone around us and feeling what would everybody love, right? Yeah, it sounds amazing. It's hard to imagine and amazing to imagine. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me for this message. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. And don't forget, if you want to be part of Business Energetics, if you have been hoping, if you have your own solo practice, if you're offering a service, a spiritual service, if you're out there, if you're wanting to share your spiritual gifts, this is the last weekend to join Business Energetics. So I'll have a link down below in the description box, and I'll see you guys next Friday live. Bye, you guys.